Hey guys, Senior RKC Instructor Josh Henkin here, along with our Senior DVRT Instructor Troy Anderson. What we're going to look at today is basically what we outlined in today's blog post, which is about lunging. It's an exercise that a lot of people have sort of discounted in favor of sort of bigger exercises such as squats and deadlifts. I've outlined in the article some really unique benefits and probably surprising information about how powerful the lunge can be. Before we get into it, I just want to show you a couple of considerations you have to make when lunging. A lot of times we don't think about all the directions that we can lunge when we do so. So for example, people initially just tend to automatically go to forward lunging because that's sort of what we're brought up with. When we forward lunge, you see all the forward momentum Troy has in his body weight, so he must decelerate that upon the lead leg. So one of the big complaints that a lot of people don't use lunges is that they can't get their clients to have the stability and the flexibility to do it correctly. That's often because we start them with one of the harder versions, which is the forward lunge. If Troy goes ahead and back lunges, you'll see his center of gravity kind of stays over his base support. So he's actually decelerating less of his body weight. So it's a much easier means in which to progress him through using kettlebells now as we place load upon his body. So we're always going to try to make sure that he has a vertical torso, he's opening up his hip, and he's not getting increased lumbar lordosis, or what you can see is a leaning in the low back when he does the lunge. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to work for different holding positions. So Troy's going to start in the easiest position, which is a double hip position. So obviously many of you have done this. When he lunges back, the weight is as close to his center of gravity, low to his body, really allows him to gain stability and balance. So we can easily apply load in this position. Once we work from there, we're actually going to remove one of the weights and start introducing what we call asymmetrical loading. So when Troy holds one kettlebell, now he has to balance not only a single leg exercise, but a single load exercise. So that introduces lateral and rotational forces upon his body. Now, right now, he's actually putting the kettlebell towards his back leg, which is a little bit easier because our body works in X patterns. Our right arm works for our left leg, left arm, right leg, just as we see him walking. You see how he just made it harder by placing it upon his lead leg. Some of you are going to find that a little bit easier, but as a sense of progression, you're generally going to want to follow that X pattern progression. Nice job, Troy. Now we can add a little movement to the kettlebell by doing a tactical lunge. So now we have that asymmetrical load, asymmetrical body position, but now we have also movement of the weight itself. So you see Troy slowly going ahead, drop lunging, passing between his hips. Nice part is that the kettlebell stays under his center of gravity and base support, so there is stability. As he moves a little faster, you'll see the kettlebell pick up a little bit of speed, which increases that lateral force against his body. So not only is he moving forward and back, but he's resisting side to side. Nice job, Troy. So now we can make it a little bit more interesting. Now we can go into a single rack position. Just by going ahead and placing the kettlebell in a higher position, it's going to stimulate all new forces. So again, when he drop lunges, he's having to now work a lot more in his trunk. So think of this as almost like a side plank where he's really engaging the lateral trunk muscles to avoid a collapse in the side, and also avoiding rotational forces as well. Nice. Now, very simply, we can add two kettlebells. And what we're going to do though is we're going to bring one in a rack and one bound by his hip. Most of you go right to the rack. That's too much of a jump for a lot of people. So now when he moves, we have a nice cross pattern of the bells as well. Really interesting dynamic that happens within the lunge and gives you more value to even your lighter kettlebells, and you can build those progressions. Nice job, Troy. And again, knowing which leg you're loading is really important. This would be the ideal pattern first. See how he has the high bell to the low leg? And then you can always progress from there. Obviously, the final progression would be double rack. So we'll go double rack, and then we'll give Troy a little bit of a break. So double rack position, now we're working that front plank idea with a lunge. So go ahead and do it again, Troy. Now the great thing about this position is a lot of times in a plank it's great, but we're really tense. We want to, in functional movement, be able to maintain tension and stabilization, but also move dynamically as well. So this is a great way of introducing that concept in nice vertical torso. Go ahead and relax for a second, Troy. So what we're going to do in a moment is we're going to continue this thought process just by changing the load position. We're doing nothing but changing the loading position. We haven't changed the actual weight of the kettlebell yet, but the level of difficulty upon Troy has been increasing as we've moved up. This is great if you're doing group or semi-private training as well. So then we're going to take it to the highest position, which is overhead. So if Troy goes overhead, there he goes. Now if he drop lunges again, we're just going to a higher leverage point. So then again, his torso has to work even harder. He's now integrating shoulder and scapular stability and mobility. Nice job, Troy. And then if we want to go ahead and grab onto that opposing kettlebell, we can just go through the same sequence. So one up, one down. So he'll press one up. This is very taxing, but very advanced, very powerful stuff that you're giving your client. We're working those X patterns. He could bring this one up to a rack pattern. And then eventually it'd be both arms overhead. And by no means is Troy a beginner. This is extremely challenging with just 16 kilos. He's done quite a bit of volume here. And relax, Troy. And you can see that you can build all these layers of progression. My goal right now is just to give you a thought process so you can see how you can use kettlebells to build progressions with your clients other than just having to go heavier and heavier, because sometimes people wonder how they make the jump from one kettlebell size to the other. We're going to show you one more thing. That is when we change plane of motion. There's all types of directions we can move in. We're going to show you a lateral step. So moving in more frontal plane, whenever we change the plane of motion, we're going to add more stability to the kettlebell. So Troy's going to do a goblet squat, or a goblet position, I'm sorry. So when he steps out, the kettlebell's in a more stable position, so now we can introduce that new pattern to him. So when he steps out, we're making sure that he keeps his weight going back, he's coming down nice and slow, he's getting a counterbalance from the kettlebell, driving up to that hip. So whenever you change plane of motion, you want to make sure you take back the holding position into a more stable holding position, and then again, you could build the layers of progression from here. Nice job, Troy. And relax. So you're going to find all types of weaknesses, asymmetries, all types of things you can really build strength upon. And you're going to be surprised how your strength grows and your mobility grows by working through these progressions in a purposeful manner and really having a lot of fun and conditioning at the same time.